In the corridors of power, the glass ceiling isn't just intact, it's bulletproof. That's directly a quote I read somewhere. And that's exactly what it feels like for women daring to step into Nigeria's political arena. You think that in 2025, the struggle for women's rightful place in leadership would be history. But no, it's alive and it's ugly, wearing even a sharper suit than ever. So let's start with Mudashiru Obasa, a name that should ring loud for reasons tied to governance. Instead, is making headlines for very damning allegations, including accusations of corrupt leadership, arrogance, insensitivity. Hopefully I said that word correctly. So much that no less than 2/3 of the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly ruled, also members of the APC, gave him a vote of no confidence, making him to lose his speaker position, not only legally, but also losing moral legitimacy among the members of House of Assembly. Although Obasa is contesting the former, claiming that the procedure at which he was ousted was illegal, one thing is certain: they lost confidence in him. But let's shift focus to Honorable Miranda, the first female Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, voted by the same members of the House of Assembly who are also members of the ruling APC. A woman who should be celebrated for breaking barriers, yet instead of support, she's drowning in speculations about her resignation, and also battling rumors crafted to undermine her authority. Why, you ask? I have a theory. It's because a woman is holding that much power in a state like Lagos. A woman holding that much power in a state like Lagos is too much for some to handle. On the federal level, let's not forget Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, a woman who didn't just walk into politics, she fought her way in. Yet, when she speaks out, she's dismissed with condescension. And I know that word too well. The National Assembly is not for content creation. That's what the word they say. Translation, stay in your lane. And now there's talk of suspension. Why? I'll tell you why. My theory is because she dared to call out the hypocrisy and challenge the status quo. And let's get to the heart of the matter. It's not just about Miranda or Akpoti-Uduaghan. It's about every Nigerian woman who dreams of leadership but has to wrestle with a system designed to belittle, intimidate, and silence her. It's about the intimidation tactics that don't need guns or fists, just a whispered campaign, a well-timed rumor, a blatant misuse of parliamentary power. Gender inequality isn't just alive, it's thriving in the very institutions meant to protect and serve all Nigerians, every single one of them, including women. You see, women have to work twice as hard to get a seat at the table. And when they do, the table flips. And then they are questioned, ridiculed, their achievements dismissed as lucky breaks or token appointments. They face systemic barriers, outright bullying, and the constant reminder that they are guests in a boys' club that was never built with them in mind. Here's the inconvenient truth. Women in leadership are not just ticking a diversity box. There are forces of change. And maybe that's exactly why the system fights them so hard, if you ask me. Because when women lead, they challenge corruption, they demand accountability, they push for progress, and that threatens those who thrive in the shadows of complacency, the old guards. So let's stop pretending. This is about politics as usual. This is about power and who's deemed worthy to wield it. To Speaker Miranda, to Senator Natasha Akpoti, and every woman out there fighting this exhausting battle, this isn't just your struggle, it's ours. And until Nigeria creates a system where women can lead without fear of sabotage, intimidation, or being silenced, we will keep speaking. Because the real content creation is not in viral videos or monologues or speeches. It's in the courage of women who refuse to back down even when the entire system is designed to shut them out. And to those in power who think that they can bully, belittle, and silence women, I have news for you. The time is running out. But not here on Breakfast Extra, because I've got all the time today from 8 a.m. to 11. And of course, my incomparable co-host, Monguno Appeal, is on standby. Monguno, good morning to you.
Good morning. I was expecting another word today, but incomparable is okay. I like. Thank you.
You take it too. Monguno is a daddy's girl, by the way. So he's all for women's rights.
A daddy's girl?
Oh, sorry, a girl dad. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a daughter, and of course, yes, I would like to see a world where she's respected, she's honored, and she's given opportunities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry I had that mixed. I haven't had my morning coffee.
Don't worry. Hey, even I. But don't worry, we're well taken care of here.
There we go. There we go. I'll come join you there. Ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and everyone at home, welcome to Breakfast Extra. Let's get started.
Well, good morning once again, and welcome to your go-to destination for the biggest stories shaping Nigeria, Africa, and of course beyond. It's Breakfast Extra for a Sunday. The last installment for the week, like as if we had 5, is only just 2. And hey, we've got a packed lineup for you guys. Let's dive into it. First off, today we're going to be doing the big report. We confront the hard truth about gender inequality, like you've only just heard Judith tell about just now. It's going to involve Speaker Miranda and the battles that she's been experiencing, and of course, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, the clash with the Senate, within the Senate. That's one thing we're going to be focusing on this morning. Also coming up, buckle up for the big story where we break down the federal government's latest move to curb fuel tanker disasters with a ban on 60,000-liter trucks. Who's going to pay for this transition to smaller vehicles? Well, we do not know. Well, we're going to find out today. We have very special guests for that one. Also, on Big Story, we'll dive into the legal gamble of Evans, the infamous kidnap kingpin. Where has he been? Well, he's seeking a bargain with the government, and we'll be telling you the details as we discuss that. This and many more coming up this morning, only if you stick around for the Sunday edition of Breakfast Extra with myself, Monguno Appeal, and of course, Judith Atibi. Good morning, Judith.
Hey, good morning, Monguno. How are you doing?
Just before we do the papers, what's up with the rains in February? I'm not complaining because it has been a very hot month.
It's been very hot.
Yeah.
Well, it's been hot, right? And when I came out, I saw the clouds. I was like, oh man, the heavens above is crying. They know that we've been through it.
So
they looked at Congo and America and they said, let's wipe it out.
What are you calling for? Noah's flood?
Yes.
In any case, I love the rains, but yesterday turned out bad for me.
Oh, no.
Yes, it did.
Oh, no.
So I'm a very sprightly driver, and I think I forgot that I was driving in the wet.
Try.
So applied my brakes, and it didn't, well, it worked. It worked a bit too much, but it skidded, and I ran into somebody, and it was an entire event. But I'm okay there. We're fine.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. No need to send compensation and everything.
Compensation?
Send it. My account number is, I joke. Let's do the dailies this morning. Thank you very much, Judith. Let's do the dailies this morning, shall we?
Yeah.
Now, starting off for the dailies this morning, we're going to be starting on a Sunday Independent. Yes, indeed. Big headline here. Different sides of Benway's undeclared war. Governor Alia in eye of the storm over security report. Victims recall tragic tales as humanitarian crisis looms. At the top there, South-South PDP re-elect Obi Zonal Chairman Wike dares party NWC as it rejects Congress. And to the side of that one, Action Alliance amends Constitution, extends tenure of Udeze, others by 2 years. Expels Umuaje, 22 others for misconduct, anti-party activities, holds 2025 elective national convention monitored by INEC. Right under Lagos Assembly crisis, this one we're talking about today. Matter of grave concern, says Inter-Party Directorate. Commentators slammed DSS over alleged invasion of legislative chamber. Who sent them? DSS arrests 3 links to assault on its officer. Oh, there was an assault. And penultimately, inflation rate drop may boost investments, drive growth. Experts say ask CBN to rethink proposed 5,000 naira bill, sustain cashless policy instead. I'm very surprised, or maybe not, that there is a consideration for the 5,000 naira bill, because carrying around all these cash these days is becoming quite cumbersome. And I bet that that has its implication on the society and on the economy generally. Finally, PDP defies FG, sweeps Osun, LG polls. Election held amid tension at Tiku Hills, Governor at Deleke. You can find that one and everything else inside of the Sunday Independent.
And we're going from Sunday Independent now to Sunday Tribune for this one here, for Sunday Tribune, as we pull that up for you on the screen. Or better yet, we'll go to Sunday Punch. The very first one that jumps at you there: activists, others lampoon Babangida, demand ex-dictator's persecution. IBB deserves life imprisonment, say June 12 agitators. You are a betrayer, Abacha's grandson tells Babangida, page 3. That's on page 3 there. You can find that story on page 3. Nigerians in UK protest visa scams, call out 30 suspects. How fraudsters took our money, victims. You can find that story on page 3 as well. Supreme Court's judgment fails to seal local government autonomy 7 months after verdict. That story is on page 8. At the bottom there, I'm not desperate for 2027 presidential ticket. That's from Peter B., the presidential candidate for the Labour Party for the 2023 election cycle. You can find that story on page 4. On page 7, motorists hunting cheaper quality fuel create queues. That story is on page 7. 3, Lagos Assembly workers face charges for assaulting DSS officers. That story there is on page 9. Dead before trial, Nigerians who took their last breath in police custody. You can find the story on pages 28 and 29. I am heartbroken, Catholic priest flogged me publicly. That's from a 53-year-old Anambra widow. That story is on page 23 as well. And lastly, this one at the bottom there for page 5 of the Sunday Punch. APC cries foul as PDP clears Osun local government poll. Pretty much all the headlines there, and pretty much all the dailies we can take.
Yeah, all we can take actually, yeah, unfortunately, because we can't wait to get into our first big report for this morning. So hang in there, stay tuned, because coming up we start in earnest Breakfast Extra here with our big report. We'll be back.
And you're welcome back. Let's get started with our big story, big report for today, I beg your pardon, as we turn our focus on a recent development in the National Assembly that has drawn significant public attention and debate. It's a disagreement over sitting arrangements in the Senate that led to a confrontation involving Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan from Kogi State. This arose after a decision by the Senate leadership to reassign her seat within the chambers, which Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan openly opposed. The matter escalated during plenary, with the Senate Chief Whip Tahir Monguno invoking a point of order under the Senate rulebook in response to our objection. Our national correspondent Tahir Ibrahim filed this report over the week. Let's take a look.
The seating rearrangement was necessitated following the defection of lawmakers Ned Woko and Francis Ezenwa to the All Progressives Congress, prompting a new allocation of seats by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio. Under the new arrangement, Natasha Akpoti of Kogi Central was assigned to a new seat, which she declined, insisting on remaining in her previous position, leading to a mild drama during plenary.
Pursuant to the provisions of our rules and in the exercise of the powers conferred on the Senate President to resume her new seat. If not, the Senate President may decide to exercise the powers conferred on him not to allow her to contribute to any debate.
Recognized to speak from there. That is the order of the Senate.
Sir, Order 10 on privileges. Order 10 on privileges.
Distinguished Senator Natasha.
Any senator may rise at any time
can the
to
Sergeant
speak
at Arms
upon a matter of privilege suddenly
take her out of the
arising,
Senate.
and he shall be prepared to move without
Okay.
notice.
Okay.
A motion declaring that the content of breach of
Show me
privilege
the
has
session
been
that allows suspension immediately.
In response, the Kogi caucus in the National Assembly urged the President of the Senate to prevent further escalation, while also demanding that Akpoti apologizes to the Senate.
What you have done, you have the power to do it. You did it at the best interest of the Senate. I don't know why. I will want her to at least come out and apologize to us because of our behavior this morning.
This will not repeat itself again. Under any other scenario, it will not repeat itself again. We're going to cancel her, we're going to talk to her.
In the end, Akpabio called for calm, urging the matter be resolved amicably in the interest of national unity and legislative focus. In Abuja for News Central, I'm Sagir Ibrahim.
Thank you to Sagir Ibrahim for that report. Now, following this incident, there have been reports suggesting a potential suspension of the senator, which she has publicly addressed. Additionally, comments from the Senate spokesperson emphasized that the National Assembly is not a platform for what it termed as content creation. To provide more insight into this issue, we are being joined right now in the studio by Fatima Mohammed Bashir, the convener of the Women for Good Governance Initiative. Thank you very much, Fatima, for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on.
I'm going to start with a very, very succinct and quick question.
Yeah.
Was Senator Natasha Akpoti in order or not?
She was in order.
Please expatiate.
Thank you very much. You see, there's something that I say all the time. I say the internet never forgets. And somehow, what goes wrong has a way of coming wrong. The moment we saw that, there was another video, maybe some 30, 40 minutes after this particular incident. And then they showed the exact thing that happened between the Senate President and Honorable Natasha, happened between the Senate President, well, he was just a senator then, and the Senate President Bukola Saraki.
What were these matters?
They were talking, it was just a sitting arrangement basically. And she has come out over the phone to give her reasons. I would go into her reasons later. But at that time, the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, said, another seat has been assigned to you, Senator Akpabio. Please take that seat. He stood up. The video is there, and he said, I cannot take that seat. This is where I want to sit. You know, he has started himself, and then it was quite chaotic. But the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, did not tell the clerk or the sergeant at arms, throw him out. So, he was calm. He just, took his time to calm the house, and then he explained that you cannot sit where the microphone isn't working, because if you put up your hand to talk, I can't even hear you. So, based on this, please take the seat that has been assigned to you, the new one, and then you can talk from there. So, and then Honorable Natasha is not somebody who is confrontational. That's not who she is. She's not a confrontational person. She's not quick to anger. She's somebody who can tolerate you for a long time. This outburst is evidence that she's had it up to here. And I speak authoritatively because she's like a younger sister to me. I know her closely. She would never, that's not who she is. She doesn't flare up easily. If you look at her, you know that she's a calm person, but she's very assertive. She knows her rights. She fights for her rights and the rights of other people. And unfortunately, Natasha is somebody whose silence is louder than a whisper. So Natasha speaks so loud when it comes to asserting herself and proving a point. And that was exactly what she was trying to do. It was point of order. That she was trying to read out that no. And you saw that she further went to say that she got to this level because she had been ostracized in the house. They had taken out her name from a lot of committees that she was on, a lot of foreign trips that she was meant to go to help better the life of her people. She was removed from it. The ones that she had gone has been self-sponsored. And she's doing all of this because of her people.
So you think all of these...
all of it culminated into her outburst.
Yeah, but I mean all of these matters where you talk about the seating arrangement or the lack of travel or opportunities and all of that have been orchestrated by the Senate President? Is that
it has been orchestrated, yes, that's what I'm saying. And then she said something else again on live telephone. She said that where they have put her new seat, that there's no how she's going to talk from there or raise up her hand that they will pick her. You would see that before she started talking, her hands were raised, and he wasn't even looking at her direction. So she said, you cannot put me somewhere hidden. You put me somewhere that is very conspicuous and obvious, and I'm putting up my hand, and you're not calling me. So when you box me into a corner, you would just give that as an excuse that, well, because of where you're seated, that's why I didn't call you.
Are these complaints just hers, or have they also been expressed by other female members of the Senate? Or is it just targeted
How many females do we have in the Senate? So sad. I'm smiling to say it, but my heart is bleeding, and that's the truth. My heart is bleeding because I don't really understand why it is so difficult. The 35% affirmative action is so difficult. And during political era, we do the bulk of the job. We're the ones who compose all the songs that they sing for these politicians.
Yeah, the ones who canvassing.
We practically do everything. And then we're nowhere. Take the census, the population, there are more women. So in the voting, if the women decide today that we're not going to vote, they will not get the percentage that will make them anything in this country. But sadly, we're pressured from here, pressured from there. They want to shut us up. They don't want us to talk. And then any woman who tries to raise her voice to speak, they say, oh, you're rude. Oh, don't you have... I even saw one very stupid person on the comment section and said, doesn't she have a husband at home? Natasha is married, happily married. She adores her husband.
She has a kid.
She practically adores her husband. She's a responsible married woman.
I have to ask you, referring to the interview, it's now gone viral. It was a telephone interview on a radio station that has now gone viral, and she alluded to something. She said that they are moving. She cannot speak on the matter. She made it very clear that she cannot speak on the matter. She narrated outside of the story and said that the seating arrangement and what had happened before then, she was not always, every single time she raised her hands to try to move motions, she barely gets noticed, and now moving her to the very end of the hall would make it extra hard, given that the sitting arrangement is amphitheater styled. But she also talked about the suspension, a possible suspension, and then we also noticed that in that report, the Kogi State, the caucus and other members had said that the behavior was unruly and uncalled for, and she needed to apologize to the House. Is the suspension justified, and do the comments of the members of the House justified?
The suspension is not justified. He wasn't suspended while he was a member, and he did the same thing. The Senate President, Bukola Saraki, never suspended him. He just came calm as a father, and he explained himself and put his foot on the ground. I didn't expect anything better from her colleagues from Kogi State. First and foremost, they are not from the same political party. Secondly, Natasha is not a voice, she's not just a face in Kogi. She is a moving train. She's a force to reckon with. I dare them, the men who have come out and say she apologized, she's rude. What have they done? What have they done in their senatorial district? What have they done? Put it pari passu on a scale, and so I'm not surprised that they will come out and say that. And you know, at times like this, people want to have very robust committees, they want to cheer it, so they won't say the truth. But, I mean, why suspend Natasha for what? You see, the thing is that I think it's just in Nigeria that we keep forgetting the fact that Natasha's mandate went through a lot.
Yes, and
if you look at everything that Natasha has been through politically, it is unfair for anybody to try and silence her, or for anybody not to be nice to her. She's lost practically everything.
But they might argue that it's not their job to be nice, that they are just here as everybody else.
They are just here, yes, I agree with you, but there's no how you look at it. We're humans. This humanity part of us must come to play. This is somebody who won our elections, they stole her mandate, she went to court, and came back, and in a short while she's done so much. Maybe the question is, who is afraid of Natasha? Who is afraid of Natasha being quite heroic in the Senate? Who is afraid of her speaking louder than a whisper?
The Senate spokesperson made comments regarding the incident, stating that the National Assembly is not for content creation.
It's amazing that people from his constituency should actually cover their faces in shame. They should. If it was for my constituency or my senatorial district, I will be covering myself in shame. The truth is, a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria looks at a situation where somebody is trying to express herself, where somebody is saying, you cannot shut me up. I would speak because I've got the mandate of my people from Kogi Central to come and represent them in this house. And there are things that I must do for them. Natasha is not there in her power. She's representing the people. So when you shut Natasha up, you're shutting up the entire Kogi Central. And then somebody calls that content creation. So was it content creation when Akpabio told her to sit down that was not a nightclub? Was that content creation? You should tell us. Was that content creation?
I'd like to remind us of one instance here. Maybe when I say these words, it will make you remember. Senator, off your mic. There was that issue between him and Saraki where he was asked to switch off his mic.
Yes.
And that resulted in, back and forth.
Yes.
No suspension or anything at the time.
No. How was that content creation as well?
It was that content creation, you ask. However, looking at the structure of the Senate and how it's built, I would imagine that the architecture of the amphitheater, you use the right word, the amphitheater nature of it is designed in such a way that sound is carried and visual, you're visually visible to one specific spot, which is where the Senate President sits. So my question is, for everybody who is sitting next to her, do they have the same complaints as well regarding the invisibility of the nature of that position, or not being heard when they perhaps maybe raise their hands or indicate that they would like to speak in the Senate?
That might just be a very difficult thing to respond to, because first and foremost, we haven't heard from the people there. And you know that in the Senate, not everybody speaks in the Senate.
Very true. I should call out my uncle at this point.
There are a lot of people who go to the Senate and just support him, does not say him.
I'm looking at you, uncle. I'm looking at you. You don't do anything.
A lot of them don't talk in the Senate. No. Bring them out and say, what bills have they sponsored?
Absolutely nothing.
109 people in the Senate? I don't think we have more than 20 people who talk all the time. But they might just not know that their mic is even off. So it's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, well, I'm calling out my uncle. I'm replying, Matthew. I'm calling out my uncle. He was in the Senate, I think, for about 8 years, and he never, ever did anything. And when he went back to his constituency to ask for the ticket, he literally went on his knees and begged them. Yeah, I might not be invited for the family reunion, but I don't care.
Do you think this will affect further, perhaps maybe considerations for women inside of the Senate, noting that this has brought out the discrepancies or the flaws of the Senate, the lack of women representation, one, and also the positioning or what
condescension.
Respect.
Because that's the word. The thing is, they keep forgetting that, like we have said, the internet never forgets. And when you keep pushing people, when you keep oppressing people, when you keep relegating people to the back, and ensuring that you're stamping your authority in ways that you should not exert it, they would get to a point where they would turn back and they would face you en masse. I don't care what they decide to do to women in the Senate, but I'm telling them one thing of a certainty. The time is coming where the women will revolt. I see a revolution, because a lot of people are getting tired already. You saw what just happened with the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Lagos State. So A lot of people are getting tired already.
Are they really? Because there's a quote here. In the corridors of power, the glass ceiling isn't just intact, it's bulletproof. And so being as tight-clawed as this glass ceiling is in the corridors of power, and seeing the level of hoops and obstruction, and you know, just to think about it, of what women have to go through, because it's not just getting there, all the hoops and everything, they have to work twice as hard to get that appointment, whether it's by election or by appointment.
Not in the ruling party, in PDP, probably in Labour or something.
Yeah.
In ruling party, that's not how it is.
Yeah, but we're seeing the situation with Speaker Mojisola Miranda. Is she not the ruling? Is she not the ruling party? Is she not in Lagos State? That's supposed to be a progressive state.
I honestly don't want to speak about her because my heart is broken. I'm not happy, and I don't know.
So do you still have the sentiment that it's not just APC, that is other parties and it's not APC?
No, why I said that, I'm a member of the APC. I'm saying that in APC it is easier because it's your party and it's the ruling party. So it is them saying, okay, this is the person who, you know, who the crown fits. So you don't go through a lot of stress. It's not rigorous trying to get anything. But in the PDP, you go through a lot of stress to do primaries. You do the primaries, you even finish, you start to go to court. You start the stress of wanting to, you know, compete in a terrain where it doesn't seem like you have it.
How many women were elected in this current election cycle under the APC?
In the Senate?
Not just Senate, like nationally. When you look at it from the House of Senate, the representative chairmanship.
They went up to 30.
That is low. That is low. So if you're making a case, for APC, isn't that low?
Yeah, I agree with you, but the truth of the matter is, I'm sure it's better than what it used to be.
No, no. So
it's better than what it used to be.
No, it's reduced.
No,
it's reduced.
How many female senators did we have last dispensation?
It's been dwindling over the years, and from the last 8 years of APC in presidency, and before that time with Goodluck, and before that time with Yar'Adua, and also with Obasanjo, we had more women. And so as it continued to progress to APC, the number of representation of women have reduced. So why make a case for the APC?
I don't think it's an APC thing. I think contesting an election is not particularly easy. I can tell you that. I have contested 2 times, and I know that I'm still staggering. I'm not balanced yet. Women who contest elections, especially those without godfathers, you get to finance yourself. And financing an election is not a child's play. So I'm sure that there are a lot of inhibitions that have stopped women from coming out. There's no institution who is saying, oh, we believe in you, we're giving you this money, go right there and do. No.
Right.
And then after you have won an election, there's nobody who's even going to fight if your mandate is stolen.
Fatima, we would have to draw the curtain here on this conversation, but I would like to note that you got visibly exhausted and emotionally touched when we spoke especially about Miranda this morning. I just wanted to point that out, but perhaps maybe we'll talk about that on a different occasion.
She still won't come. Are you going to accept the invitation if we invite you to speak about Mojisola Miranda?
I'll come.
She will come.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, on that emotional note, let's draw the curtain on this conversation, and we'll be bringing you another one. Let's talk about the tankers this time and the authorities' decision to make them smaller to stop accidents. We'll be back. Welcome back. It's our big story this time, and a decision has sparked intense discussions across Nigeria's transportation and oil sector. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority has announced a nationwide ban on 60,000-litre capacity fuel tankers from operating on highways effective 1st of March. This move follows a disturbing rise in fatal fuel tanker accidents, devastating incidents, and have claimed lives, destroyed properties, and left communities grappling with trauma. But while safety is the clear priority, this decision has raised questions about the ripple effects on fuel distribution, transportation cost, and the broader economy.
Will this ban improve road safety without causing fuel scarcity or increased pump prices? And what support exists for transport operators and fuel marketers who now need to adjust their logistics? Joining us to break down this and more are two key voices. But first, joining us is Akpoti-Uduaghan, is the National Publicity Secretary of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IBB. Mr. Akpoti, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for joining us this morning, and good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning, Nigeria.
Yes.
Let's start with your thoughts on this ban and how it will affect fuel supply and even supply chain as well, especially with the removal of such large capacity tankers from operation.
Well, it's a government policy, but I also want to correct an impression here that that resolution that was announced by NMDPRA was a stakeholders' agreement. It was in a meeting where some issues about origin and transportation of petroleum products, stakeholders emerged and resolved that 60,000 capacity tankers should stop flying the roads on the 1st of March. So it was a stakeholders' resolution. It is not by NMDPRA. NMDPRA was just used as an authority in the industry to, convey the meeting and the resolution of all the stakeholders. And I also want to let you know that all the stakeholders, including NATO, IPMAN, Petroleum, DAPMAN, MEMAN, police, everybody, including the authority, they are all there, and they painstakingly took time to be able to analyze the effects of this decision, and the gains thereof. So that is that. And for the question you just asked, the effects of this ban, yeah, definitely, it's going to affect distribution of petroleum products, but the effect might not be felt so much because there are also other tankers that have capacity of 45,000 liters and even 50,000 that government have allowed to fly the roads. So those tankers will continue to operate until maybe the ones that have been banned, maybe they will reconstruct it to be able to carry 45,000 capacity. So that is the issue for us.
I would please like you to state once again the stakeholders that were involved in this decision.
Well, the stakeholders that are involved in this decision was born out of constant road accidents, burning of trucks, and other related issue about the saving of lives and property of Nigeria.
So who are they?
Recall.
Who are these stakeholders? If you can mention them once again, please.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The stakeholders that are involved. NMDPRA was in the meeting. NATO was also in the meeting. IBB was in the meeting. MEMA was in that meeting. Petroleum was in the meeting. PTD, Lupeng, they are also in that meeting. So all the stakeholders you can think about in the oil and gas industry, they are all invited to that meeting. And it's not just one single day meeting. That meeting was held maybe 3 weeks ago, before the last one that this resolution came out. So the meeting has been held like 1 or 2 times before they resolved that they are going to put a ban on the 60,000 liters capacity.
So, Mr. Akpoti-Uduaghan, now, if all the stakeholders have come together to agree that these trucks should be off the road, what consideration was given to the timeline? If 1st of March is when these transporters are supposed to make effect this decision, what time has been given to them to transition from 60,000 liter trucks to smaller trucks? Do they have the capacity? Economically for them, would they have to purchase or reconfigure their trucks or even repurchase new ones? Is this perhaps not too sudden for those who are making these products available to people in the far reaches of the country. How would that affect me, perhaps, when I'm looking for fuel to buy and there is a sort of scarcity because these marketers, or rather these transporters, are reconfiguring their trucks?
Well, this stakeholders policy is hard, and all this you are saying now is also put into consideration. It is not easy, but for lives of Nigerians, I think no sacrifice can be able to prevent any life at all. So the issue of reconstructing that truck, that is what NATO, that's an association that is involved in the transportation of petroleum products. That's what NATO is also working out with federal government, because federal government need to compensate, especially independent marketers who also own trucks. So federal government need to compensate marketers to see how these trucks can be reconstructed to 45,000 liters. While our roads, new roads, because it is not about reducing the truck, it's also about maintaining the roads. All this issue about road maintenance, training of drivers, buffer zone, and all the rest of them. All these things we have all discussed extensively, and vehemently they all agree that because of stability and lack of control and overload, that these 60,000 liters should stop. They should stop flying the road. And if you look at the effect of it, actually, it is very enormous. But I think people have to make sacrifice. So federal government have to come in, like you just said, to be able to ensure that that 60,000 liters, marketers will not be at the front. It's so difficult these days to borrow money from banks and put all this truck on the road to have dividends of your investment. And one policy or the other will just come out because of bad roads. It is not with the independent marketers that build the roads, it's government that build the roads. So government should ensure that there are no potholes. Even for 5,000 liters, if there are excess potholes on the road, they'll still have problems. And the distance of receiving and discharging this product is too far. Most of the drivers run like 3, 4, 5 days on the road, and they are all wearing off. So that is also what also should be put into consideration about which are the resolutions to salvage these kind of problems.
And I have to ask, right, because I'm looking at just trying to think of the logistics plan, moving from 60,000 liter tanker to something more smaller in terms of distribution. How then are you going to adjust your distribution logistics? What are the plans that can effect this ban? Is there going to be a phased out implementation of it? What would happen to those 60,000 liter tankers, in the long run? Because we have to think about, sustainability and climate change, and are they going to be dumped? Because looking at Apapa, just driving over the bridge at Apapa, those are, I don't know, in the thousands. Where would they go to? And what's the implementation looking like for logistics?
It is a very difficult decision. It's a very difficult decision, and this decision has been long for a very number of time. It has come before, and there was a pressure. Government relaxed on it, and this time around, the incessant fire and road accidents continue to reoccur, and most of the indices before NMDPRA is this large volume of trucks. Their stability on the road and the inability for some of the drivers to control them while they skid off the road is very, and their damages are very, very, very horrendous. So the issue before us here is how do we now compensate the owners of this 60,000, which is very, very important. The federal government, in as much as it's a policy that all stakeholders have agreed, the federal government has to come in because this is economic investment. And parking those trucks, they are fun. It is also a waste on our economy, and it will dwindle down the distribution of petroleum products, and maybe Nigerians will suffer because of it. If federal government can bring an intervention fund as quickly as possible to be able to ensure that all and take census of all these trucks and reconstruct them. There's no big deal about reconstructing them. Within 2-3 months, several of those trucks will be reconstructed. The issue is just removing 10,000 liters out of the truck and reshaping it back again to carry 45,000 liters or 50,000 liters. Some of the compartments can be plugged inside so that products will not go into that place. And they are calibrated and they will still continue. So the most important thing is the volume of the product.
Well, Mr. Chinedu,
how bogus.
Mr. Chinedu, I want to think about this logically now. If we reduce the size of the tanks, these trucks still have to ply the same routes, still have to go through the same urban or village communities, and they're still prone to accidents. Why is it that the stakeholders didn't think that it might be more effective to beseech the authorities to perhaps maybe make selected routes for trucks, or at least maybe make them ply at a certain time? Perhaps remove more roadblocks from the roads, because these roadblocks themselves cause accidents because you have to meander through them, or seclude communities from their usage. Because everything you've said from before has pointed out to the roads, that they are bad. The stakeholders never talked to the authorities to say, perhaps make the roads better, wider for these trucks, or say these trucks will ply only specific routes that are, well, usable by them, wider perhaps, or freer, or they don't have curves. Why wasn't this considered? Why go straight to cutting down the size of the trucks, noting that this will take an intensive amount of time and effort and money?
Well, all this was also considered by the stakeholders, to be sincere and honest with you, and there was serious deliberation on it. The roads in Nigeria, we are still reconstructing them. Federal government is continuing to reconstruct all the roads. If you see the East-West road, it has taken up to 15 years. They are still on the East-West road, West road. And the texture of those roads cannot be able to carry the density of the trucks flying in. Most of these trucks, once they fly out, some of them are 90,000. And the capacity of our roads are not built to be able to sustain such heavy-duty trucks. And these heavy-duty trucks are passing once in a while. They continuously, passing through this. They move in a higher number of volume of petroleum products. So the damage that comes to the road at long is massive. So federal government cannot start now to reconstruct all the roads to be able to pile it to carry 90,000 or 60,000 capacity. So the short term of resolving this issue is to reduce the load, so that they can save the life, to reduce the tanker, so that they can save the life of the road. Now, it is not only that this issue of the road that causes signages are also part of it that causes road accidents. Long driving. Most of our drivers drive close to 600 kilometers to go and get there. No buffer zone. You will see some of these buffer zones, they created themselves. You go to Munede, you go to all these little junk yards. That is why you see the drivers, they sleep there. And when there is a driver that's not supposed to drive in the night, instead of going to a very quiet apartment to sleep, so they can be able to start sleep in the morning, you go to this Munede and find all these other little joints. And they will see that they'll take 2 or 3 bottles of beer and they will be awake. See the next morning, dancing and all the rest of them, and now enter this truck. All this is causes road accident. So that stakeholders put all this before the government. I said, a very comprehensive one-stop trailer park should be built across the nation, so that tanker drivers can be able to drive into their truck, check into a small chalet hotel, refresh themselves, and maybe 6 a.m. or 6 night, they will move. Federal government has also agreed that no truck will drive and move in the night. Once it's 7 p.m., wherever you are, you should stop there. So the next morning you continue your movement. All these things have been said. They also have agreed that there will be training in all our depots by the petrol tanker drivers to train their drivers how to behave, to stop reckless driving, and all the, so many other issues were being discussed. So these are the only one that is that's raising this traffic. Let us reduce trucks that have above 45,000 liters or above 50,000 liters to 50,000. Once your truck is 60, 70, 80, that's on trucks that are 90,000. They convey petroleum products in quantity. But they all suffer. Both those who are using trucks and those who are using vehicles suffer the same road accident. So instead of continuing to destroy these little roads that we have, that we are managing, that the federal government is managing to maintain for us, trying to fill up all the ports. Because if 90,000 liter capacity trucks passes anywhere you put power, it is going to break it. There's no two ways about it.
Mr. Ukadike.
So we have like that trucks on the road to save the life of citizens and property of the country.
Mr. Ukadike, I mean, hopefully this might be a long-lasting solution to the challenges that the marketers and the tanker drivers and just the average Nigerian faces. But at the end of the day, will this aid in, in constant fuel supply to the nation? Will reducing it from 60,000 to lesser continue in just delivering a proper value chain in terms of delivery of fuel? We'll wait to see until then. But we want to say thank you for taking out the time. And we do hope that this is going to be a lasting solution to the issues. If not, we'll come back again to the table and still discuss ways to fine-tune this. But we want to say thank you. Chidi Ukadike, he is the National Publicity Secretary for the Independent Petroleum Marketers of Nigeria, and just joined us to give us a bit of insight on the ban of 60,000-liter trucks plowing our interstates. Let's go on a short break. When we come back on the other side, we bring you the news. Stay here. And let's bring you breakfast headlines here on News Central Television. I am Judith TB, and we'll begin with an update on the Osun local government election. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has won all the chairmanship and councillorship seats in all the 30 local government areas, LGAs, in Osun State. The chairman of the Osun State Independent Electoral Commission, Osiak Hashim Abioye, announced this at a press conference on Saturday. The commission defied warnings by the police and the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF Lateef Fagbemi, to hold the poll. The state governor, Ademola Adeleke, who cast his vote in the Ede North local government area, described the exercise as peaceful.
I say that violence, I don't want that, because we are peaceful people, in Osun State. Like, as you can see, everything is going on well, very peaceful. Thank you.
In the meantime, the South-South zone of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has re-elected Dan Osib as its zonal chairman in an election held in Calabar, Cross River State. Electoral Committee Chairman Vita Abba has announced that Orbin secured 174 votes to win the elections. Other officials elected include Alaba Tuno, Secretary, Evelyn Wike, who's the treasurer, and Ijoma Obani as financial secretary. Orbin has pledged to end impunity and imposition in the party while working on rebranding efforts. The second edition of the ministerial briefing has started in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The series is a platform where key federal government officials are expected to provide regular updates on projects that they have implemented so far. The session kicked off with the Ministers of Livestock Development, Alhaji Idi Mukhtar, and Regional Development, Abubakar Momo. The Tinubu administration hopes to demonstrate its commitment to open communication and good governance through this series, which will be open to the public. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Nyesom Wike, has pledged his commitment to making Abuja safe for members of the diplomatic community. The minister made this known while receiving the ambassadors of Egypt and Morocco, saying that the FCT administration will do all it can to create a conducive environment for them to fulfill their diplomatic responsibilities. Amadi Nuyi reports.
The ambassador of Egypt first arrived with his team. He commended the FCT minister for the ongoing infrastructural works within the capital and called for an improvement in bilateral relations aimed at expanding the economy of the FCT. The minister commended the long-standing relations between Nigeria and Egypt, saying that the FCT administration is available to improve on the already existing relationship.
I really look forward to working closely with Your Excellency and other senior officials trying to push these bilateral relations, especially when it comes to economy, expanding infrastructure in both Egypt and Nigeria, because there is great potential that remains untapped. As the biggest two countries on the continent, I think we share the responsibility of enhancing our bilateral relations to take the continent further.
Nigeria has a good relationship with Egypt dating back years. And we have a lot of their companies that are also doing well, particularly the Arab contractors. They are one of our key infrastructure. And carrying out one of the very, very important roads, Airport Kuje Road, which is very key for us. So we're happy to receive you. I will continue to see that whatever we can do for you, do not hesitate to let us know. It will be our pleasure to have good relationship with you.
Also, the ambassador of Morocco visited shortly after, expressing his willingness to develop relations with the FCT administration. The minister, in reply, pledged to support the diplomatic community resident in Abuja. He acknowledged the improvement in security, saying the FCT will ensure that the capital is safe for all visitors and residents alike.
We want, of course, to develop this relationship not only at the level of the federal government, but also with the city of the territory. Hope to have partnership between Rabat, the capital of Morocco, and Abuja as the capital of Nigeria, this big country.
We would like to explore opportunities on how these two cities can cooperate. It's very key. So our is to make sure that all the diplomats carry out their business ease without any hindrances. Of course, you can agree with me that the security has so much improved. You can see the infrastructure development going on in the city. So we're happy to do anything that will make your stay in Abuja comfortable.
The minister commended both ambassadors for their willingness to support the ongoing development visible in the capital. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And on to security matters, the community of Uwere Uzukala in Urumba South local government area of Anambra State has been thrown into mourning and anger following the alleged extrajudicial killing of 3 innocent workers of the Akunechemba security outfit, a government-backed security squad. The slain victims, identified as Malaki Chimaobi, Unwonyawu, and Odikalu Chinonso from Umweze 1, Eime Mbano, Imo State, and Kosiso Chukwu from Isiofwa, the Governor Chukwuma Soludo's hometown, were reportedly on site for a church building project when they were gunned down. The security operatives allegedly labeled them as unknown gunmen, a term commonly used for criminals and insurgents in the region. News Central special correspondent and investigative journalism, who is currently on ground on an assessment exercise of the security situation in the state, has more.
The compound of late Marcel Okoye, whose son was among 3 men who were gunned down by men of the Akunechemba security forces. The Akunechemba is a security force that was put together by Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State to help augment the services and efforts of the Nigerian police in the state in tackling the activities of IPOB and what has now come to be known as unknown gunmen. Now, Kosi Sochukwu was the member of this compound, the son of late Marcel Okoye, and his bereaved mother is still here and finding it difficult to move on without her son, whom many have said was the comforter of the family. He was killed while working in an Anglican church in Umweze, in Orumba South local government of the state. He is from Iswafia, the governor's hometown, and that is why it is sort of, you know, taking the people aback that this can happen to a son of the town of the governor, and nothing has been said, nothing has been done, not even a visit to the family. But we're here to follow up on that incident. Their bodies were left littered on the road at where they were gunned down, and you had members of the public who were outraged by the killing of these men by Agune Chamber security forces.
And now to health matters. Over time, Nigeria has recorded interceptions and raids of either counterfeit or expired drugs in large quantities from different parts of the country. Sometimes arrests are made by the regulatory agency of suspects, but hardly do the people get to know how many convictions are got over the years. Recently, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control carried out raids in some popular markets in the southeast, wherein they discovered warehouses and truckloads of unwholesome drugs. News Central's Chinwe Ugeli in this special report tells us more.
Nigeria is one country where drugs are sold easily in the open markets, even without prescriptions. In the same vein, manufacturers of various medications sell to ready buyers, irrespective of their status.
Well, I know the government will look into that, but while we are still working on this, we want to make sure that it's sanitized, what is being sold from here.
This, according to a pharmacist, Ihwamejo, for accounts for the several cases of fake and expired drugs sold in pharmacies.
I will always advise people to use registered pharmaceutical shops, outlets, because they have sworn oath that they are to sell the authentic medication.
A consultant pediatrician, Dr. Eukaria Oba, says these fake or expired drugs are capable of damaging more vital organs in human beings.
In our population now, we have so many people coming up with kidney failure. Those fake drugs and expired drugs may be one of the reasons why people are having this increase in kidney failure.
Besides the health issues associated with the intake of these drugs, there is the economic draining of consumers who unknowingly purchase them.
And it at the end also make the person, instead of going home maybe within few days, will stay longer in the hospital, assuming the patient was admitted. And also you end up spending more money, okay? So maybe instead of spending just 5,000 to treat that illness, you may spend up to 20,000.
Recently in Abia State, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control besieged a warehouse where every single medication inside is allegedly expired.
This quantity we cannot quantify yet because everywhere here is filled, everywhere. We also saw a machine that is used to do expired products. So it shows us that this is what is taking place in this place. An arrest has been made. The police have a few people, but the main person is on the run.
At the popular Omogu Bridgehead Market on Nisha, Anambra State, the regulatory agency seized yet another consignment of 40-foot-10 trucks of alleged fake and expired drugs.
So that is why this is never taken lightly in any civilized nation.
To the public, it is disheartening to know that they may have at one time or the other purchased their own problems with their money inadvertently.
I feel so bad because any fake drug produced at any point in time has a life it will affect.
They are therefore demanding for commensurate punishments against the dealers.
Government because he a lot of people.
NAFDAC, they should sit up to their responsibilities if it means life jail on the person that they find selling a fake drug.
They have to, give stricter laws of what should be done to such individuals. That way to deter others.
Why does it seem as if an infinitesimal population is bringing the people to their knees while the government watches helplessly? Ihua Majorfor believes that restricting sale of drugs to only registered personnel will go a long way in checkmating the activities of the perpetrators.
The NAFDAC, Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, and all the agencies that are related to drug procurement and drug delivery. They should have registered pharmacists or registered pharmaceutical company that will have their pharmaceutical rep whose sole job is to distribute to all the pharmacies, all the outlets that need that medication.
As much as the regulatory agency raids shops, markets and warehouses to seize unregistered, fake and expired drugs, there are still lots of these drugs dumped in several pharmacies across the zone being sold to the unsuspecting public daily. It appears rather too easy to wriggle out of the custody of the regulatory body, hence the little information on the cases after raids and fewer convictions secured by the agency over the years. In Omar here for News Central, Chinwe Ugeli.
And many thanks to Chinwe Ugeli for that report. That's all we can take for breakfast headlines for this hour. It's back to Breakfast Extra on News Central Television. Stay here.
And you're welcome. And it's time for us to put a little humor into the news. Well, we don't do that by ourselves. Our friends and colleagues for papers and the dailies always have something inside of there that we can talk about inside of Breakfast Extra. Here for a Sunday, we bring you the strips. Judith is going to be joining me to analyze some of these, but of course, you know it's always fun. We're going to take our very first one as we welcome Judith. Thank you very much, Judith, for stepping in to also assist. Judith, where are you? There you are. Fantastic. Let's take our first strip for today, shall we? So our first strip for today is going to be this one, which I found very interesting. It's from Business Day, by the way, just so you know. This is what we've been talking about since last week. And of course, the story didn't go anywhere. U.S. aid funding terrorism in Africa. Is it or isn't it? True or false? We'll find out as the U.S. has set out an investigation, and so have the Nigerian authorities as well. They woke up to say, let's do our investigation. The battle for LG, hang on a second. This is not the one I thought it was. I'm so sorry. I thought it was the U.S. aid one. Judy, you didn't help me out there. You didn't tell me I was looking. Apologies. Battle for LG control in Osun State was something we talked about yesterday as well, as the elections actually held. Whether they liked it or not, the APC's absence or presence, it still went on. Amidst the chaos that was before the elections, we had a guest here yesterday, two of them actually. He talked to us on the legal side of things, how the elections are, well, to the benefit of these parties or not. This is the situation, but I can't see anything. The authorities have told that the security agencies should step in. But with everything that's going on, what can they do in Osun State but to just allow it go on? Did you hear that Davido got involved as well, Judith?
Well, is that not his home state?
Yes, it is.
That's his uncle. And then his uncle is what? Governor?
Exactly.
So, but again, what do you step in to do is the question.
As the security agents?
No.
Is that what you're asking?
No, and I'm talking of Davido. What does he step in to do?
No, he was very passionate about the fact that the CP wasn't certain considerations or non-considerations. So
I didn't
he was
see that.
very vocal and a bit abusive. I think he also apologized after. He was actually. He was.
Wow, I didn't see.
He apologized after in any case. But that
He's
just
such a
gives you.
sweet guy. What happened?
That just gives you. Yes.
I mean, compared to Burna Boy.
Sometimes he can be a bit extra, especially when it comes to these matters. Let's leave Davido aside.
Actually, don't know.
The issues of Osun State are getting out of hand, or they were from before the elections. And we thank God that at least that went on peacefully. Let's at least look at that positive. We're going to move on from this one now. I'm hoping it's going to be the USAID one. Yes, it is. Yes. There we are. That's the one I thought it was. Uncle Sam purportedly still manipulating Boko Haram in Africa and the funding box there. This is your money, this is it. There was supposed to be another strip I saw during the week where one terrorist was telling the other terrorist, where did you get your own from? No, I got my own from so and so. Meaning that they have different funding parties for terrorism in Africa. And on this other strip, it was actually referring to the USAID-sponsored one. But investigations are still on. We're not absolutely sure whether the fundings were going into terrorism or maybe by some roundabout way it was. But I guess we'll find out. But the race is on for who exactly uncovers the dirty linens from under, whether it's going to be the Nigerian authorities or the American one. But this is from the Business Day newspaper, and we wait to see where this investigation goes. Do you have anything to say about this?
No, I mean, of course, you put it very succinctly. There's really nothing. We wait to see how this will go. But we know why, Trump did what he did, and we're seeing it being played out. I just hate that every single time Africa always has to be in the center, in the middle of all of this brouhaha. And I do hope that the investigation is as transparent and as accountable, and everyone who's culpable is held responsible.
I'm being told, can we take one more? Can we take one more? Yes. Mass weddings in Kano. This year alone, 2.5 billion has been earmarked for mass weddings. But the question is, as you are mass wedding them, does mass divorce also follow? Is this increasing the rate of divorce, or is it actually reducing it? There was one that was held for divorcees alone, by the way, and it's a yearly thing. How do you feel about this, especially that women are very concerned about these matters, Judith?
Oh, I've never been,
wedded.
Think that, what did you say?
I said wedded. Is that what you're
I've never been wedded, of course. That was no news. But I just wish that all of this money was going to educating those women and marrying them off. But what do I know?
Judith?
Yeah, so that's all.
That's as much as we can take for the strips. We wish we could do more. We do have more, but no time. Maybe perhaps before the end of the show we can squeeze in the rest. But let's move on now to another segment, and we've got a discussion that you'd like to hear. Stay tuned. It's Breakfast Extra. Another big story this morning. Former military ruler and head of state Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, a figure often described as enigmatic, controversial, and influential, has launched a book offering his side of the story. Now, this book has stirred fresh debates, particularly as it revisits the shadows of June 12, 1993, the presidential election widely regarded as Nigeria's fairest and freest vote, yet abruptly annulled under Babangida's regime. For many Nigerians, that moment marked a brutal betrayal of democracy, leaving scars that still linger in the nation's political psyche.
And so now, 32 years later, IBB claims it's time for his truth to be heard. But the question remains, will this book offer genuine insight into his decisions, or is it another attempt to rewrite history and protect his legacy? So joining us to deep dive and answer most of our questions is Bala Ibrahim. He's the Director of Publicity, APC, and he'll help us to unpack the timing, implications, and public reaction to Babangida's revelations. Mr. Bala Ibrahim, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
I'd like to get your thoughts on this book launch and the release of his book and telling his version of the events that happened 32 years ago after June 12th. Your take, what did you think?
Well, like you rightly said, 32 years after he left office, the book has finally arrived. But this is a long-awaited book. These memoirs have been expected for long, particularly because of the controversy surrounding the annulment of the June 12, 1993 election. So there has been a lot of excitement. People have been looking forward to the book. Well, they said it's never too late to do, no time is bad to do the right thing. So it has been awaited for long. It came, even if lately, it has come to lay bare some facts and probably correct the distortions that have been there for long. Babangida himself admitted that yes, the book will not end the controversy, will not end the discussion. In fact, it's even likely to trigger or stimulate additional controversies and discussions. So it is for the country to discuss It is for the country to look at issues as they were made open by former President Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. But the important thing is that he admitted that there were mistakes and missteps. And as the leader then, he took absolute responsibilities. So with remorse, he regretted his action, and he said if the opportunity represents itself, he's going to do things differently. So it's left for Nigerians, when they are looking at the issues, to look at the fact that, yes, to err is humane. As a human being, you can make mistakes. If you make mistakes and you regret the mistakes, you lament and you seek forgiveness, you apologize, it is left for people to have a portion in their heart to forgive.
Well, Mr. Bala, it's very ambiguous, this reversal or this, well, I don't want to say apology, because Babangida didn't really apologize, let's face it. He simply noted that there were missteps and mistakes, like you noted. He also said that he would perhaps maybe do something different. But then he also did say that it was in the national interest that that decision was made. So it's contradictory. It's like ambiguous. If you're saying that it was in the national interest that he made that decision to annul the June 12 elections, and then he's also saying on another side, from the other side of the mouth, that it was in the interest of the nation, what gives exactly? How do you explain this? Because it's very ambiguous at this point.
Well, national interest is something that can be looked at differently by different people. But when a decision is taken by a collection of people, national interest is subjective. He said as of the time that decision was taken, it wasn't a decision that was singularly or single-handedly taken by him. It was a collective decision. And in taking that decision, the interest of the nation was put at heart. And when they look at the circumstances as they presented themselves at that time, that decision was the best decision they could take. And he takes the blame for being the leader, or he takes the responsibility for being the leader. Now, with hindsight, he said when they review, or when he reviewed things, he has seen that they have made mistakes, and that if they are to be given another chance, if another chance were to present itself, he will approach that national interest differently. So I think he apologized, because when you say you have made mistake and that you regret what you have done, you regret your action, it's akin to saying you are sorry and you are apologizing and you seek forgiveness from those who felt offended. This is my understanding of it.
But is apology enough? That's the question. Is it enough? And when they say, when we use the term for national interest, it takes us back to 32 years ago at June 12. It's a memory that has been etched into the narrative of Nigeria's political space, so much so that I don't think that Nigeria was ever primed for democracy as of then and 32 years ago. And so, is apology enough? Is he rewriting his legacy, or is this just the pattern of an old man?
Well, you see, Babangida is an old man. If you see, that book was launched, he was seated on a wheelchair, so he's not fully healthy. When he took that decision, he was full of energy in 1993. He was strong, he was vibrant, he was in uniform. Now, over time, his health has degenerated. He himself has degenerated. A lot of water has passed under the bridge. Whatever action is taken, even if you are going to go beyond apology, it will not bring back late Chief MQ Abiola. Once a mistake is made, the best thing is to draw a line, forgive, even if you don't forget, and move forward. You cannot reverse, you can revisit, but you cannot reverse history. What has happened, and one of the challenges of leadership is taking responsibilities. You don't have to expect that whatever responsibility you take, or whatever decision you take, will go down 100% with everybody in the country. No way. Some people will be for, some will be against, and some will be indifferent. So I think it's left for the country to visit its conscience, look at the role of responsibility, and see how leaders make mistakes. Sometimes they are honest mistakes. Now, if a mistake is an honest mistake, what you do is to forget and move forward. But if it's a reckless mistake, then you can think of punitive action. Now, what punitive action will you take? Will you say you are going to kill the man who made that mistake in order to balance up? No. Will you say, okay, you push him back to position of power and force those circumstances on him and let him take a reverse decision? No. Whatever you do, you have to look at the fact that the time has passed. A lot of things has happened in between the time the election was annulled to what is happening today. And as a result of that mistake, certain things have been done to assuage, to pamper, and pacify those who were offended. And I think the previous government has even listed Chief M.K. Abiola amongst former presidents of Nigeria. Whether that will stand any test of legality is a different thing. But as things stand now, I don't think there is anything that can be done to restore the life of Chief M.K. Abiola by any means.
So there's nothing that can be done to restore M.K. Abiola's life, but is there anything that can be done to restore democracy? This book is revealing so much. However, the question still remains, how much has it set us back? Timeline-wise, it set us back 30 years, or well, not 30 years, but it set us back a long time. And people argue that we could have been competing with the likes of Ghana when it comes to democracy. What will the revelations of this book then do for us now, noting what mistakes he has acknowledged? How will that affect politics going forward?
Well, I think it has affected politics positively. When you look at the guest of honor at the launch of the book, is no other person but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Bola Ahmed Tinubu can be said to be a beneficiary of what happened after the annulment of June 12. Because pursuant to the annulment of June 12, Nigeria was forced to accept the concept of power rotation, power shift, such that every segment of the country, every geopolitical part of this country is given the chance to rule. It is as a result of that that power has been oscillating between the north and the south. We had Obasanjo from the southwest, who was the first on the roll, and now we are having another person from the southwest in the person of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was in the vanguard, who was in the forefront of the fight for or against the annulment. So he has benefited because, well, only God knows, but I would say, if that had not happened, if this power rotation thing has not been indirectly inserted in the psyche of the country, we are not sure power will shift to the southwest twice within a period of 20 years. So,
Mr. Bala, I don't know if the impact was on power as much as it was on the process that leads to us putting individuals in power. Our electoral process was really marred when it came to this annulment, and that has gone on to affect everything else. Once it affected the annulment, once it affected the electoral process, it affected the people who were put into offices, the leaders. So how much damage, if we're going to compare, if we're going to be truthful with ourselves, how much damage did that do to Nigeria? And it's not talking about the leaders that were put in place, it's about the electoral process, how it affected the electoral process from then on.
Well, you see, if you look at Nigeria's history in democracy, if you look at the ease with which military governments keep coming to overthrow democratically elected governments in Nigeria, this is the first time we're having such a long span of time in an uninterrupted democracy. And I see this as a result of the distaste, dislike, and the way and manner Nigerians have shown their hatred for military intervention. I think the annulment has made the military so unpopular that Nigerians are not anxious to see the military in power. If you look at it from that angle, you will say, yes, it's a plus. It's a positive thing that has happened because it has entrenched the love of democracy in the minds of Nigeria. And it has made democracy to thrive longer than it had ever done in our democratic journey. So I don't look at I don't see it as a damage per se. Yes, it's a damage, but a constructive damage that has come to make Nigerians imbibe and embrace democracy more. It is for the players in democracy now to continue to do things right, to continue playing democracy by the book so that, God forbid, we don't have such intervention in future.
Well, I mean, Mr. Bala, there's so much has happened with the administration of the former head of state, Babangida IBB. It's not just the June 12th, but there's also the letter bombs as well, Delegiwa, and so much more that happened in that era. I wish we had enough time to continue this discussion, but unfortunately, here's where we draw the curtain and put a pin on this discussion. I want to say thank you, Mr. Bala Ibrahim, for taking out the time to join us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Here's where we draw the curtains with this discussion, but when we come back on the other side, it's going to be time for Wellness Central, and this time we're raising awareness for childhood cancer. After the break. And you're welcome back. Now, every year, thousands of children, including across the world, including right here in Africa, are diagnosed with cancer. But despite the terrifying nature of the diagnosis, there's a growing movement of hope driven by advancements in treatment, early detection, and most importantly, stories of survival. Early detection remains one of the most powerful tools we have in saving young lives. Yet, the stigma, lack of awareness, and inadequate access to healthcare often mean many children don't get the help they need in time.
So today we'll be hearing from two inspiring guests. First, we have Inomama Dixon, a childhood cancer survivor and passionate advocate who has turned a personal battle into a mission to help others with her foundation, Tumor Fans Foundation. Also joining us in the studio, Dr. Nneka Ngobi, who has dedicated her career to improving outcomes for children diagnosed with cancer with her foundation, Children Living with Cancer Foundation. Together, we'll explore the importance of early detection, what signs parents should never ignore, and how communities can rally around children facing the toughest fight of their lives. Welcome, ladies. Welcome.
Welcome.
So first, let's start from here inside of the studio. Dr. Ngobi, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Childhood cancer is not something that parents are actually looking out for. Sometimes when it does happen, it's because, they went in for something else and discovered that this is the issue or the realization that comes to them. But what could parents actually look out for when it comes to childhood cancer?
Incidentally, most of the ones that would come across come late. Not because the parents were looking for something else, and so they may have had symptoms and signs, and then they've been shopping elsewhere. Not coming to the right places. But then the signs and symptoms to look out for, them have what we call the Sensulan signs, SILUAN. The S is seek for medical advice for whatever it is in your child that is baffling to you, or recurring that you don't know what to do. The I is for the eyes. We have quite a lot of children who have cancer of the retinoblastoma, and there are ways to detect that. Swelling in the eye, boozing around the eye as if the child has had some injury. Meanwhile, the parents know that no injury had occurred in that child. The L is for lumps in any part of the body. Any part of the body that they detect a lump, that child should be investigated. A for aches and pains that are not going away. You understand? Then they use for any unknown, just like every other thing. Because we'll have signs that look like, in this environment, malaria, that is very similar to leukemia. And also there's fever, there's anemia, there's aches and pains, and then the child had been treated a couple of times for malaria. Meanwhile, the malaria keeps reoccurring. The malaria in foot keeps reoccurring. The anemia is persistent. They transfuse the child a couple of times, and the child is not getting any better. So these are the things to look out for. Sometimes, I think our parents should be more observant of their children. Unfortunately, in this rat race where parents wake up as early as 4, 5, and are out of the homes, early and come back late, the care of the children are left to the schools or the house helps in the house, who may not be
as observant as the parents
a mother would be.
I want to find out from Mama if this was her experience as well. If you could tell us about your personal experience, Mama, please.
Okay, so thankfully I was very fortunate. Good morning, by the way. I was very fortunate to have very present and very observant parents. And so what was being said is completely correct. If you're not very observant and the parents aren't present or there's nobody in the house present, they're not going to notice the fact that there's going to be a difference in the child's way of walking, talking, their breathing. Because for me, I went to school and I came back with a limp. And so if my parents hadn't noticed the fact I had a limp, then there wouldn't have been any prodding or poking to eventually come to the cancer diagnosis. So yes, I would say my experience was pretty similar.
Very similar. And just how did that experience, just when you got your first diagnosis, what was the journey like for you, even getting your diagnosis, and the experience like for yourself and your family?
Yeah, so for me, because I was quite young, I don't have any personal recollection per se of the journey, but I have read my mom's book and I have spoken to my mom a lot and heard about it. And it was hard. What was said a couple of minutes ago about it being cancer sometimes being mistaken for malaria or other diseases that are so much more often recurring here in Nigeria is extremely important, because we had gone to multiple hospitals in Nigeria, in Port Harcourt and in Lagos, and we had gotten a possible malaria diagnosis, for example, and many other diagnoses, I think 3 or 4 others, none of which were correct. So yeah, there was a lot of having to push and prod, because if you take what's given, sometimes at face value, without being completely sure and aware that there may be an issue, it may sometimes be attributed to something else.
I mean, and I'm glad you said, Doctor, I'm glad you said that, it took them to several CTs, and in the end, she was glad that her parents didn't take it at face value. If not, and they still continue to push and prod to find out more until they got the correct diagnosis. Yeah. And so let's take it back home to Nigeria, and particularly, for Africa, where our public healthcare system is another thing entirely. Even as adults, getting the correct diagnosis takes a longer time. What more children, right? So let's talk about the healthcare gaps in Nigeria. Doctor.
I think basically, I trained in Lagos. I had some of my residency in Lagos. So I know for certain that the gap would be between the private care sector, the primary health sector, because once they are sent to a place although I must say that yes, sometimes we may have some misdiagnosis, but even when we have those misdiagnoses, is maybe from the labs or because it's quite, and then even telling the parents that their child has cancer is another thing that is frightening. Most parents don't want to hear that, and then even when they are told, let's do this, because we are suspecting that, it's not an easy thing for any parent to, but the fact that there is that background knowledge that there's a possibility, because most people don't really know that children have cancer. So because of that, it's even harder to get them to believe. Sometimes you tell a parent that your child has cancer, and the parent takes off, and you won't see the parents again for a long time, because they will go from one hospital to the other, to native doctors, to the church, and before they now come back. And then at that stage, maybe the cancer had metastasized to other part of the body. It is more difficult to treat. Having said that, child cancers are one of the easiest, or is much easier to treat and achieve remission and cure than adult cancer. So yeah, we have that deficiency, which is why for us, one of in fact, the foremost thing in the charity is to create awareness, not just amongst parents, but amongst health caregivers. You see something, be suspicious. Let it be one of the things behind your mind that can this be? It probably will not be, but then if it is, what do you do next? Do you refer? You cannot treat, in a private hospital, so you must have to refer for proper diagnosis and then proper care.
I'm very happy that you at least gave a glimmer of hope there, where you said that it's better to manage when it's a child than if it gets to adulthood.
When they come in early.
However, how expensive is it? What's the rate of survival for children?
Okay.
To manage, I mean.
To manage,
how expensive is it to manage?
It is very expensive, very, very expensive. Right now, a hospital like Lut have increased their fares. The medicines are, on the high side. Before, we could give a child, let's say, 100,000 for their course. That's because they come in either every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. But now that is not going anywhere. And what we do in Children Living Cancer Foundation is just to give chemotherapy. When we have other things that the child needs, then we go out of what we do, out of the norm, and ask people to help donate money for that. Let's say maybe radiotherapy or surgery or some investigation. PET scan is expensive. Radiotherapy is 1.something million.
Oh, wow.
Then if you now talk about, let's say, things like transplants, we started at Lutz, I think last year, and they started at 45 million. But then when you check how much one will spend outside of Nigeria, it actually makes sense to do it here.
How effective is it to do it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm asking you all the questions when we still have you, number man. I'm sure Judith wants to get
Mama, I mean, we're talking about treatment and recovery, really, right? From getting your first diagnosis to recovery and treatment, and now being, healthy and strong as you are. Talk to me about that experience of, the treatment journey and the recovery journey for yourself as a child.
Just like most chronic illnesses, the treatment and recovery, I would say, was long. Thankfully, it went well for me, and treatment was well not done in Nigeria, very well done. But when it comes to prices, just like Dr. Monguno was saying, it's expensive. And hence, treatment is expensive. And in a country such as Nigeria, where so many people aren't making that much, being able to have the treatment is almost unattainable for lots of families.
Yeah.
Thankfully, by the grace of God, I was able to get my treatment done. Like I said, there was obviously ups and downs, but thankfully it ended up and I was able to get treated. Recovery, as per usual, takes a few years. I feel like when talking about cancer or any sort of illness as a child, or even as an adult, we attribute recovery to stop when medications stop being frequently taken. But I would say in my case, for example, recovery has been a lifelong thing, in that there's still certain things I struggle with, like my dentition, for example, my height, having up and down hormones and everything, a lot of them being linked back to my childhood cancer. So recovery is, I believe, a process, a long one. at that. But like I said, I'm much healthier, much stronger, and thankfully been in remission since I was declared cancer-free.
I find it very interesting. I find it odd that sometimes society forgets that children also have responsibilities as well, right? And so I'm sure there was school that you had to deal with, relationships, like, friendships, and trying to explain to your friends what's going on with you, and hoping that they understand, and being able to manage all those big feelings as a child. How was that like for you?
I'm actually quite glad you asked me that question, because in any of the interviews I've had, I've never probably had a chance to explain that. So I know when I was much younger, I don't remember too much of that, because I do remember leaving school early some years, to go get my checks done, or, missing some days of school because I'd fall ill, and it's a really big thing, because I wasn't sure what was going on, etc. So that was a bit confusing, especially as a kid, but also not too confusing, because since I was diagnosed so young, it's more or less been my normal since almost birth. What was a bit more difficult was understanding my feelings and explaining my feelings the older I got. When it came to, I had a lot of fears of relapsing, even though I knew the chances weren't extremely high. When I became more aware of what I went through as a kid, I started getting increased anxiety or fear about relapsing. And I went to boarding school when I was 10, so I was pretty young when I went to boarding school, but about the same age as most kids in Nigeria. And so not really knowing anybody, new country, new school, and then also having these increased fears of relapse and being sick again was extremely hard for me to understand myself, not even explaining to my friends or to like these new people that I've met about why sometimes I'm so sad and quiet and stressed. So I would say like for kids, it's a lot. I would say even more if you're diagnosed as an older kid, like a teen, preteen. I'm sure those diagnosed at that time have a lot more anxiety and stress, or like find it harder to explain themselves. But yeah, it was a lot. It continues to be a lot. It's something I still struggle with, though I'm what, 18, 19 in 6 months. It's a lifelong thing, at least my life so far.
Well, Mama, thank you very much for sharing. Now, my next question goes to both of you and your foundations, Tumor Fans and Children Living with Cancer. That's Ms. Dr. Nwobi's foundation. Now, I want to give a bit of hope to parents who perhaps are passing through this, because it's scary when we talk about the management and how expensive it is and where you have to go and the psychological effect that it has on you. But what are your foundations doing to assist people who perhaps are living with this or have children that are going through this trauma or this cancer itself? Let me ask first, Dr. Nwobi, please, how are you helping, or how are foundations across Nigeria helping parents to come to terms with this and also see them through the processes? Dr. Nwobi.
One of the things that we didn't have in Nigeria was counseling. They tell you that your child has cancer and deal with it. Now counseling not just for the parents, but like Mama says, the older the child gets, the more understanding the child has of what is happening to him or her, the more fear the child, the psychological trauma that child experiences is something that needs to be dealt with. So we would instead of counseling in Nigeria, who have trained 4 of us to be able to talk with these children. So in our midst, we have parents, parents who have gone through this process, who have, they have that background and they're able to feel more empathy towards other parents and children, and who have survivors, and those survivors, in fact, one of the counselors is the survivor herself. She had a bone cancer, had her leg amputated. What we try to do is to try to give hope we meet every last Saturday of the month. This day was one of the days that we meet. So let me just give you a very, very brief story. This girl, Dara, had come to look. She had her leg amputated for one of these parties. And then there's this little girl, and she had the same diagnosis. They were going to amputate her leg, and she wasn't having any of it. When Dara walks into the ward, she sees her, with one leg, and was like, "What happened to you?" And she tells her what the issue was. And she got herself to this girl and accepted to have that amputation. And I'm very, very happy to see that today she's cancer free.
That saved her life.
You get what
I
I'm
just
saying?
had shivers.
So that seeing other people who have survived it, going through their journey, telling their stories. So when we meet, we talk about what to do with other parents who are just experiencing, who are undergoing that journey at that time. What do we need to do? This is what I went through. How can I help you? You understand? So that is one of the things that, like I said before, we give chemotherapy drugs, but one of the things that we need to do more is to create awareness, which is what we,
Mama, did that story send shivers down your spine as well? Do you have any such stories? How does ChemoFrance also help people who are going through this?
I would say that story I was very happy when I heard that. It made me very hopeful. I would say very similar to Dr. Mubi's foundation, having a shoulder to lean on, whether it be emotional, faith-based, or just like a network, people sharing stories, is one of the greatest ways you can help somebody going through like cancer treatment. I would say my mom wrote a book, for example, which is how we raise actually a good chunk of our funds through donations from this book. And the book is supposed to be a source of inspiration. So ChemoFrance sort of creates a network as well in finding inspiration, hope, encouragement, other people going through the same thing, and us, the founders who have gone through the same thing. We don't directly provide chemotherapy, but we do raise funds for whatever treatment or medicine is needed for children. We try to support between 10 to 15 families a year, which, as Dr. Mubi said earlier, with inflation, up goes the prices. So we need to increase the amount of money we are able to raise to help these families. But yeah, so raising awareness, as Dr. Mubi said as well, is very important. I think near the beginning of the interview, she had mentioned that a lot of parents don't even know that children can have cancer. So raising awareness is extremely important because we're talking about early detection. If they don't know that a child can get cancer, they're not going to look for cancer. So raising awareness, raising funds, and then having that inspirational network.
Mama, thank you so much for sharing your story and just being here and just, we know you're all the way over the pond and you still woke up to join us on this conversation. We want to say thank you. But before we draw the curtains on this discussion, we have to talk about one thing, and that's religion, and how religion oftentimes deter parents from going and doing the right thing, if that makes any sense. Religion is good, don't get me wrong. If that's where if faith is good, don't get me wrong. But when you substitute faith for health or science, where science should come in, that's where it becomes a problem. So I'd like for us to sound the alarm on it, to just talk to parents and say, as much as you have faith, sometimes science is needed, or is an added combo, or how they say it, collabo, to assist.
That word was in my head.
Yeah, there we go. Mama, you go, and then Dr. Omobi.
Yeah, of course. I'm very, very, very happy you brought that up. I grew up in a Christian household. I'm Christian, my mom's Christian, my dad's Christian, my family's Christian. And so we put a lot of importance on our relationship with God and our trust in God. But like you said, we are still human beings, and we cannot do one without doing the other, on the hope that without taking any action, something will happen. And now I'm fully trusting God for any issue that comes into my life, whether it be disease or anything. But I also have to take action. God has given us tools that we have to use on top of our faith in Him. And so, like you said, I don't think science can be just left to rot because you're like, okay, God has taken the wheel. God has taken the wheel, yes, but you also have to take action as well.
Right. Dr. Mobi, just final thoughts as we wrap up because we're out of time.
I think basically, Nigerians are very religious people. But then what is there. And then we don't like to hear the truth. You know, yeah, like you said, I'm a Christian. I believe in miracles every day. But then there are tools or vessels through which these miracles occur. The fact that people have the knowledge to know what the diagnosis is and treat it is a miracle. So let us keep having that faith that God loves us so much that He cannot give us what we cannot handle. And then these people are placed there to help us achieve that thing that we have faith in God for, basically.
Doctor, thank you so much. Thank you to you, Inomama Dixon. She is a childhood cancer survivor and the founder of Tumor Fat Foundation. And we also have with us here in the studio Dr. Nkechi Nwobi. She is a doctor and the founder of Children Living with Cancer Foundation. And together we've been talking about raising awareness and just early detection and just the signs and what we need to know about childhood cancer. If you have a kid, they seem to be limping, they have a tumor, they have a lump somewhere, or there's some injury somewhere, please reach out to the right authority or doctors, or just seek correct help. That's why we draw the curtains. When we come back on the other side, we bring you our extra special as Evans, yes, you know him, the kidnapped kingpin, asks for plea bargain. After the break.
Now, Chukwudumeme Onwumadike, better known to the nation as Evans, the notorious kidnap kingpin, has resurfaced in the news with what many are calling a legal gamble. Convicted of some of the most high-profile kidnappings in Nigeria in recent history, Evans is now seeking a plea bargain. Yes, you heard that right. From commanding fears across the nation to now offering to forfeit properties and reportedly teaching fellow inmates in prison, Evans is asking for leniency. But the question on everyone's mind is, should he get it?
Now, this case isn't just about one man's crimes. It forces us to examine the balance between justice and rehabilitation. Is rehabilitation even possible for someone with a history this dark? And what message does lenience send to victims, their families, and the broader society struggling with the reality of rising insecurity? And so joining us today to unpack these questions is Joke Aladesomi. She is the founder and executive director of the Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation, an organization deeply involved in advocating for fair justice and rehabilitation for inmates in Nigeria. Joke, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome. When I first heard this plea bargain, I said to myself, given his criminal history, why? But am I too harsh? should lenience? Can he be rehabilitated? Because if you ask me, I believe nobody can. Nobody changes.
Really?
I believe people don't change.
Oh, that's not true. A lot of people, yes. A lot of people actually, especially those who are behind bars, are looking for an opportunity for them to change. And that's where myself, as well as my organization, that has always been my advocacy. And you were asking me a question about what I felt, right?
Yeah.
I think at that moment, when we got about the news, there was also one of my colleagues that called me right immediately because they know that, okay, you're always talking about rehabilitation for incarcerated persons. What are your thoughts? And I think for the first time, it made me to think about our advocacy again. Okay, now this is someone who the public has an opinion about, and you have always positioned yourself with regards to advocating for rehabilitation of incarcerated persons, right? And giving them second chances. So what about in this case? And sincerely, people do change, and this is also not different. Yeah.
Very interesting. The name Evans, when it comes up now, it's like we're beginning to forget. We're forgetting what transpired, what atrocities he caused, and now he's teaching people and all of that. So I can understand where Judith is coming from, where she's like, how can you now be giving this consideration to say, okay, let's be lenient with Evans? Takes us back to the 80s, the name Aneni. Do you remember it?
Of course.
Oh, you just showed your age.
Already used to.
In any case, Aneni was a villain and then became an anti-villain because of the stories that were told and retold about him, where we felt like our mothers even loved the character, even if he was a robber and then a killer. And that seems to be the case here with Evans. Yes, perhaps, maybe, but I think bigger question is to our judiciary. The fact that it's taken this long and nothing has really happened, and now we're beginning to tilt the scales into forgiveness. What's that going to do to deter other people when it comes to them looking at the crimes that he's committed and say, if he could get away with it, maybe I can. So if you have to balance rehabilitation and justice, in this case, your take.
All right, thank you. And I would also want to mention that I'm also a criminal defense attorney.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I asked the best person.
Oh, yes. So the first thing we need to look at here is plea bargaining is not forgiveness. So there should be some sort of sensitization. Plea bargaining is not forgiveness at all. So what is the only thing that is happening with plea bargaining is that the defendant here is taking a plea for a lesser offense, which still makes him punishable. So plea bargaining does not exonerate you from what you're being accused of. It's only reducing the sentence, and I think that idea came up to address the overcongestion of our prisons, right? To address the fact that there's so much overpopulation. Now you're looking at a prison that has a capacity of 800, and they now have like for instance, the Kogi prison has a capacity of 800, but right now if you look at their population is more than 2,500. I mean. And together with the other prisons as well. So plea bargaining is not leniency, it's not forgiveness, it's not now you can go. And we also have to bear in mind that particularly Evans' case, Evans had more than almost like 5 cases in court.
Yes, indeed.
And they've sentenced him to life imprisonment in one. He has been sentenced to 22 years imprisonment in one. The plea bargaining application is with regards to another case. So if he gets the plea bargaining here, it doesn't even take away the fact that there are already pending judgments that already puts him to sentence him to life imprisonment, right? And doesn't take away the fact that he has 22 years still dangling over his head because they are all different cases, different defendants, different victims, right? It's just asking for plea bargaining with this regard.
I'm also very, very happy that he got the opportunity to actually get a diploma.
Yes.
in prison. So let's talk about that. How many other people are offered the opportunity to also be rehabilitated in this format, get an education, and perhaps maybe come out absolutely rehabilitated?
Right. Thank you very much. So as an organization, like I already mentioned, we work with the Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation. So we are so big with advocating for rehabilitation of incarcerated persons. We believe that interventions should be available for them to want to explore. Now, for me, one of the interventions we provide for them in prison is actually educational, we call it educational for correction programs, right? And what we're saying is incarcerated persons should have access, because for me, even if you've committed the most grievous offense, when you get to that point where you're telling yourself, I think I want to go back to school, that point is the point of you saying, you know what, I want to leave my dark behind, and I just want to go on the path of light, or I want to do something much more profitable, much more productive and positive for the society. And I also need to mention that Evans, interestingly, the news has a way, or the media has a way of putting these information out, quite all right. But the truth remains that the scholarship is actually available for every incarcerated person that wants to go. I mean, the National Open University. So it's not just unpicked.
Is it represented in the prisons?
You said?
Is it represented in the prisons?
Yes. So for National Open University, because they're allowed to write, so they actually write JAMB in prison. They write JAMB in prison, they write GC in prison, which is one of the things we do for them, like I said. We teach them every other day. Like
there are classes given in prison that lead up to these exams.
Exactly. Now, if you allow me to make a little bit of a diversion and to share an experience that made us to start our educational program, was because on that particular day, I had a matter in court, and I was representing someone who was facing a murder charge. So he told me, please don't choose this particular date, choose this particular one. And I was like, you should be happy the court is even giving you a shorter date. But I engaged him after, and he told me, oh yes, I'm actually having an exam. And then I go, oh, really? You people write exam? Because I was shocked myself. You people write exams? And he said, yes. Oh, so I sat him down and I started asking questions. And he told me, well, we write exams, well, we don't have access to teachers. We have to borrow, we have to pay to borrow books amongst ourselves. We have to, and for me, I was like, if you're keeping these people here, because the statistics already shows that 95% of people will come out, whether we like it. I hope you know that the law is different from public opinion. The law is the law. The court has the power to make its decisions. All right? 95% of incarcerated persons will, this is a globally accepted statistic, would definitely come out. So how are they coming out? Now, this guy, we have to now start our educational program where we are teaching them every day. I mean, teaching them chemistry, physics, biology, preparing them for exam. We recently saw the last GCE exam in female prison and were blown away by the by the good result they had. And this guy now wrote the exam. He was eventually, as at then, he was already awaiting trial for like 8 years. In 2020, he was discharged and acquitted. And now he's a graduate of criminology.
Fantastic.
Yes, so that's the point. And we're talking about, now, in this case of Evan's case is very sensitive because, of course, there's a lot of public opinion on it. But we also need to know that these conversations around this affect thousands of people. People who maybe they are even there for what they did not commit an offense for. And they're just looking for an opportunity to have the gap, you know, to have it bridged in some ways. And really, in terms of rehabilitation, people actually do get rehabilitated. They just really want to. It's also not easy to commit crime. You know, they're just looking for an opportunity for them to be able to contribute positively and productively. And it's exciting to know that the quote-unquote dangerous Evans, as you know, while he was there, it could have, because you're not mandated, it's not compulsory. You're not forced to take any of this program. But he thought that, okay, let me take this, let me go back to school, let me take this. Then there's some mind change. No matter how we want to look at it, there's some sort of mind change.
What if there is no mind change? Well, hang on. Evans, this character, I feel like this character, this moniker that it goes by, he's a kingpin. He's very intelligent. To do what he did can only take a criminal intelligence. Like, the mind is wild. That's one. Two, he was able to infiltrate into a community that's highbrow, upper middle class. So that's somebody that's extremely intelligent. And so for skeptics like myself, who do not believe that
we change,
yeah, what would you say to that?
Well, you know, one of the things I'm going to be very careful about is to actually talk about the state of his mind, because nobody actually knows. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, listen, the language of the mind is your actions.
And in terms of actions, his actions already shows that he's changed.
No,
like,
you're trying to balance out the scales now.
No,
which
what
is
I'm
okay,
saying, what I'm saying now is actually taking some steps to. Do you know what it means? See, we interact with these people every now and then. As a matter of fact, 3 times in a week we're in the prisons. Like, I mean, on Tuesday I'm still going to be there. So we go to the prison every now and then. Do you know what it takes to study in that kind of situation? It's terrible.
Yeah, you don't have any choice.
Yes, no, you have a choice.
What choice do you have?
The choice here is that you can choose not to go to school.
Yeah, they don't have free time. There's no mobile phone. If I was there, I would most likely read all my to-be-read lists, you know, all the books on my to-be-read list. Because then there's no television, there's no mobile phone, there's no internet. And I get tired of my cellmates, you know, maybe 9 times out of 10, I'm just, don't be in my space for too long. And I would like to escape, you know what I mean? So I think books are, they're a form of escape for you. So you don't have any choice but to read. There's also craft that they learn there where they do the, I remember my uncle that used to work in customs, is late now, may so rest in peace. Every single time I go visit, would always see the wares that, you know, the inmates at Kirikiri facility would do. And it was either the fans or the baskets. I knew about Ankara handbags before Ankara handbags became a thing. I knew about Ashoke shoes and bags before it became a thing when people are buying. And that's why I don't buy them, because whenever I see them, I be like, yeah. I'm like, no. You know what I mean? So, do they really change?
Really, I feel, say, if we come from that perspective, it would be denying people the opportunity to second chances.
Okay.
Which we should not be found to do. Because the truth remains that, what if they want to? Because I hope you know that this mindset, which is which you find everywhere, not just in Nigeria, actually, because it took them years of fighting stigmatization in places like the United States that is battling with mass incarceration. Like, it's years and years. So I totally understand. We hear it every now and then. But I hope you know that that mindset of, do they really change, is one of the reasons why rehabilitation in terms of our correctional facilities is facing serious setback. Because they just feel, well, they're not going to change. We are all just wasting our time. But for me, as a person, as an advocate for rehabilitation of incarcerated persons, I just feel that if they get to that point of wanting to make, because at every point in life, you will agree with me that we're always making choices at every point in life, right? When it gets to that point of making choices, let it be available. Let it be there. Let them, okay, I think I want to go back to school. Let it be there. Let the classes be there. Let the libraries be there. Let the vocational centers be there. Let it be well equipped, because you really don't know at what point that's going to happen. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I choose to be positive, unlike Judith. So I would want to...
maybe because I don't have the spirit of forgiveness and I don't give people second chances.
What opportunities there lie for these individuals who have been rehabilitated in prison when they come out? How does society accept them or not? Are these degrees, for instance, adequate enough for them to get proper jobs, also noting their ex-convict status?
Right. So the issue of stigmatization, I think I'll pick an example from what Judith said. Judith said she doesn't even buy Ankara bags because she feels that, right? She feels like, this could have been made.
No, absolutely no. So that's why I sounded like, okay, so I take it back. What I mean is, now I'm not buying that thing. You're most likely ripping off people's label. That's how I see that.
Okay.
You know, that's like, I'll buy now. I buy it as gift for the older women, all the older aunties in my, you know, I don't mean that.
Yes, so there's a lot, the truth is there's a whole lot of, because we also have a community of formerly incarcerated persons as an organization where we bring them together every now and then. We're providing training, job readiness training, we're providing anger management training, dealing with family post-incarceration. We're actually trying to look at the different perspective, because the truth remains that before we got to this point, there is practically no support for people who are returning. And the truth is they are returning. I was shocked last year when I engaged some of the officers and they told me that every week, over 100 persons come out from a prison. Every week. You don't know them.
Over 100 people?
Yes, come out. Well, that doesn't mean that 200 does not go in. I'm just trying to focus now on the level of people that keep coming back. And we don't know them. You don't know them. There are some that could even be your mate. I'm telling you, and you don't know them.
The question now is, how much rehabilitation happens in Nigerian prisons? Is it effective? Is it 50%? Is it 20%? Is it 10%?
So that's why this conversation is very important to me, because we're at that point where we are saying that our prisons should make provision for rehabilitation. If we now take a turn and say, for someone like Evans, no, then it looks like we are putting it, and then we are putting the whole, you know, to kind of destroy the advocacy as well. Our prisons needs to be structured in a way that it gives room for broad rehabilitation, because whether we like it or not, they will come back. So the question is, how will they come back? If they're not empowered, if they don't know what it takes.
My brain has been doing this math. You said 100 people in a week, and so when I did the math, that means 5,200 people come out of the prisons every year.
You don't even have an idea. you don't have an, because they keep coming and they just keep going. And
so if you do that math again, for those who are ingoing at 200, 300, you are at what, 10,400 or 13,600? Okay, well, that's enough.
Exactly.
My head is going, I can't help it. Ajoke, we want to say thank you for taking out the time to join us. Ajoke Aladesomi, she is the founder and executive director of the Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation. We're talking about a plea bargain for the kidnap campaign, and just better yet, rehabilitation and reintegration into our society. Is it a yes or no? Is it time? Can Nigeria do it? Only time will tell. In the meantime, let's go on a short break. When we return, it's time for us to switch gears and return our focus to Africa. Stay here.
Welcome. It's time for Focus Africa. Now, the global stage has never been more complex or more revealing. The recent G20 summit brought together the world's most powerful economies to tackle global challenges, from economic instability to geopolitical tensions sparked by conflicts like the war in Ukraine, for instance. But for Africa, there's a bigger story beneath the surface. while the African Union secured a historic permanent seat at the G20 table, marking a significant diplomatic victory, the spotlight shifted uncomfortably towards South Africa. The snub from the United States, the country once considered a key ally, raises tough questions about shifting alliance and power dynamics.
Is this merely diplomatic posturing in the face of growing U.S.-China rivalry, or does it reflect deeper concerns over South Africa's geopolitical stance, particularly its relationships with Russia and China? And more importantly, what does this mean for Africa's position in the evolving global order? And so joining us to unpack these questions is Munjozi Muntadiri. He's the Programs Advisor at the Southern African Liaison Office. And he has deep insight into the regional diplomacy and Africa's role in global affairs. Munjozi, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us. I mean, let's just get started with this biggest headline, the perceived U.S. snub of South Africa at the G20. How significant was this move? Is it, would you say, diplomatic? And what message does this send for the rest of the African continent and to the G20?
Thank you so much for having us on your program, and good morning to your viewers. We think that it is really a very difficult time for the globe, because the challenges we are facing indeed require the rest of the world to put its heads together and say, how do we address the challenges we are facing in this 21st century, ranging from conflict, ranging from climate change, developmental issues, inequality gaps deepening and widening very fast. And it is indeed unfortunate that at this particular point in time, the United States has chosen to step out of the G20 meetings or refuse to participate in G20 meetings because we think that an inconsistent United States is better on the table than an absent United States. That is at the very minimum. We think that the United States has to be part of the global discussions to address the challenges, not least because most of them are as a result of their actions themselves, but also because the solutions for the future will need everyone. So the impact in terms of diplomatic relations with South Africa are quite, the repercussions will be huge if the gap is not bridged and South Africa and Washington don't find each other. We see from South Africa all efforts in terms of diplomatic efforts and maturity to engage with the regime of President Trump. And we want to believe that cool heads will prevail and the United States will come back on the discussion table, because remember, the United States will take over the presidents of the G20 next year. So it would be unfortunate if they take over the G20 presidents having absconded from the previous or the meetings of the previous year. But we want to think that there should be some rationale to what they are doing, and that people should be able to find each other in South Africa, and indeed the United States will normalize their diplomatic relations. Thank you.
Munjozi, you paint a very grim picture with the United States taking over presidency of the G20 next. That's scary. But let's talk about the Trump presidency and how it affects Africa, especially in this case, the G20 and South Africa. Very interesting times. Trump is friends with some of the most notable names in the world. Vladimir Putin comes to mind. He's also friends with, who else? Oh, his new best friend is Elon Musk. Noting that, why do you think this snub is coming now? Noting the names I just mentioned.
I think that to start with, if we take a closer look at Trump's presidence in the first term, his first term of office, it was very clear that he has very little regard for Africa. Remember, that's when he said something about some shithole countries in Africa, and a number of other statements that really show that he had no regard for us. We think that it is not surprising in terms of the stance that he has taken at the moment. It is something that we expected, of course, not as fast and as furious as he is moving in terms of implementing what he sought to say he represents. Clearly, Elon seemed to have a very problem relation with South Africa, his country of birth. And we think that there could be more, something that could be even very personal about how he sees South Africa.
Monjozi, there's also the talk of Trump's interest in white South Africa and the fact that he is perhaps being empathetic toward their cry or their call-outs, where they have noted that they're having their lands being taken away from them. Of course, you can't talk about this without history in place. Why they have these lands in the first place. But it would seem that there's no consideration to that. There's that. There's also the relationship between America and also Russia. Russia can't be in the G20. So does that tie up a few loose ends in why the snub is happening now?
So to be fair, as a starting point, most of the rhetoric that we are picking from Washington around the land reform issues in South Africa have not been corroborated by any evidence. In fact, it would seem that White House has misunderstood or has been misinformed or misled by the real developments in South Africa on the ground. And that's what the South African government has been putting on the table. And that's why they have welcomed the United States' investigations into the law that has just been passed, into the material conditions on the ground in the farms, and be able to make an informed decision. So that's for one. And that's why we think that it seems that of course, a lot of people have highlighted that there is a small clique of white South Africans who are not happy with the law, who have lobbied the United States, and we continue to see videos of them lobbying the United States. But I think that these are issues that can be laid to bed by genuine, honest discussions on what really is developing, why the law was passed. One of the things that I think is very crucial is that South Africa should never allow its laws to be written in Washington. It shouldn't. No other country, Nigeria, Kenya, Zimbabwe, any other country you think of should not allow its laws to be written in Washington. And the leaders of this country, its institutions like Parliament, should be able to craft laws according to the dictates of the material conditions of their people. And I think that's what South Africa has been pushing for. But also at a global stage, we think that Washington has already clearly indicated that South Africa's position in terms of Israel-Gaza conflict is something that they want to punish Pretoria for. And again, we think that the respect for international law, a spirit that harnesses multilateralism in terms of solving the world's problems, is what is really important at this particular point in time. And the United States, in my opinion, has to understand that coming to the table, genuinely discussing where others are coming from is important in finding lasting solutions. Otherwise, you plant seeds for future conflicts if you want to bully others into submission and do as you please. We think the G20 in itself is really a huge platform for the G20 to address some of the challenges we are facing, but link it also with what other intergovernmental forums like the United Nations, the G77, the BRICS nations are discussing. All these discussions have to find a common thread and find each other at some point. That's why I'm saying that we believe that the United States has to look at solving problems with others not by dictating to others what needs to happen. We want a world order where the rule of law, international law in particular, is respected and is given a chance. People talk to each other as mature adults and not to force others because they have made a decision you disagree with.
All right. Yeah, Monjosi, I mean, it's very thankful for that. And your final thought there, just a final submission, really just speaks to, you know, the global power struggles. As it intensifies, it begs to ask the question how Africa can sort of, African leaders, and they can navigate these waters and geopolitics to have a strong standing when it comes to, you know, global power and the global power stage. But thank you so much for taking out the time to join us this morning and for your insights in this discussion. We appreciate you for doing this with us.
Thank you, Mondozi.
Thank you. And just to say that African leaders have to know that they are on their own and we need to unite and move as a bloc, as Africa, if we are to be taken serious on any discussion table.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We must band together. Monjosi Muntadiri there, he is part of, let me see now, just to get his designation correctly, Programs Advisor at the Southern Africa Liaison Office, just to give us a bit of insight on the G20 summit that happened in Johannesburg, South Africa.
I want to remind us something that Mandela said. It is the biggest mistake to think that the enemy of my friend is also my enemy. Let it sink in.
Well, as always, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. We will pass the baton now because make sure to wake up early, bright and early, because Breakfast Central is back on your televisions tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Benga Adiburua, as well as Olive Imodi is going to join you on there. So make it a date, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m.
Until then, until next week Saturday, it's goodbye from us.